My best friend cheated on her fiancé the night of the bachelorette party, and when I insisted that she confess what she had done, she threatened to reveal my past to my new boyfriend. It was my best friend Lily's bachelorette party. I was so happy for her because she was marrying her high school sweetheart James, who was also my brother. I was her maid of honor, but during the bachelorette party, she hired male dancers, and that was something I could not forgive. She slept with every single dancer she had hired. When I confronted her about it, she told me that if I told James, she would tell my boyfriend about my past as an adult entertainer. I felt torn because this was my brother and my best friend. It was eating me up. I felt guilty because, on one hand, I knew it would break James's heart if he knew, but at the same time, I couldn't let my best friend get away with this. It didn't seem right. When we got back from the holiday trip, James asked us how the trip went, and I looked over at Lily. She hadn't a speck of guilt on her face. Lily chuckled and said it was so soothing to the nerve. She talked about all the fun she had and said that she truly needed that time. James told her he was happy to know she enjoyed herself, and he was indeed keen on listening to all about the trip. The next week, Lily and I were discussing the decorations for the wedding and the seating arrangements. Lily was asking me something, but I barely listened to what she said. That flash of men going to her room ran through my mind once more. The guilt was killing me. She suddenly interrupted me from my thoughts. "Megan, are you even listening to me?" she said. I said yes and apologized. We picked the colors for the wedding decorations and left the shop. I had almost decided to tell James about the nights on the trip, but then I had no proof. These were some heavy accusations with no proof, but I just couldn't let my brother sit there and marry that manipulative person. The next day, I invited Lily out to brunch at a new restaurant near my house. I left my phone at the edge of the table in front of Lily and just chatted normally with the girls, as we would do. We had not spoken one-on-one since that night she had threatened me with Alex, so we chatted about wedding plans and how exciting everything was for her. And then I mentioned the trip to her and asked if she'd want to go somewhere like that for herself and James. She said she would love that since it was such a beautiful resort and the food was great. I told her that one of the other bridesmaids got the number of a guy she met at the resort. She said that was juicy and told me to spill the tea about it. I said I didn't know much except they were planning on having a date soon and joked that she might be getting proposed to at Lily's wedding. Lily laughed and said she wished she could have taken one of the guy's phone numbers from the resort. I asked her which one. Then she whispered to me, "I'd take the second guy. He was so good in bed." I did try to pick up my drink and extend my phone towards her. I asked if he was the best out of all of them, and she said by a long shot. We laughed and drank. In a few minutes, the waiter brought us the bill, and I stopped recording my voice on my phone. We hugged and went our separate ways. As soon as I reached my car, I called my brother. I texted him that I had to see him now. Could we meet? It was important, but not to let Lily know. He asked if everything was okay and what was going on. I told him that I would explain as soon as I saw him. I told him he needs to come to the house and hung up. I raced home and waited for James. When he knocked, I quickly answered and asked if Lily knew that he was over there. He said no, that she thought he went to visit our parents. I led him to the couch, pulled out my phone, and told him I wanted him to hear something. His face dropped. He asked me how long I'd known, and I told him since that night. We then sat there for what felt like a lifetime, and he said, "She told me she had a lot of fun and how she really needed that night. She told me how all the guys at the resort were hitting on her, but she flashed the ring I bought her. I was in shock that she'd lie to me. I apologized that he had to find out that way, but he just needed to know the real person he was getting married to. He asked why I waited so long to tell him, and I told him that she threatened to tell Alex that I used to be an adult entertainer. James said that it shouldn't matter since it happened before I was with Alex, but Alex was a conservative man, and I wanted to be 100% transparent with him at the right time. I also needed him to hear it from me. He replied, "I'm sorry you got caught in the crossfires of their relationship, but he was my brother, and I cared more about his well-being than keeping a friendship with a liar." That's when I told him that if he was to break up with Lily, he would have to do it for a different reason. I did not want Lily to discover the fact that I had told him or recorded our conversation. After all, she might still blabber in front of Alex about my past. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from Lily. She was crying and howling over the phone. I could hardly make out any words from what she said except for her repeating, "He left me. He left me." I asked her what she was on about, and she said James had broken off the wedding. I asked her why, and she said that they weren't right for each other, as he had just found some proof of her messing around on her cell. I could hear the sniffles through the crying. I did ask for more, and she said that was all he had said. She asked me if there was another girl, and I told her I knew nothing about another girl. I told her he was head over heels for her, and I don't know what could have happened. Her voice sounded so hurt. I felt bad for her right there and then. It dawned on me that at this point in time, I had to be there for her. A couple of months went by, and she stayed at my house, constantly wasting away on my couch, crying to herself. I tried cheering her up with her favorite candies and watching movies with her. Seriously, how many movies are about couples when you are trying to avoid them? I was there for her through all the heartache and listened to her vent. She asked me if I could talk to James to take her back. I told her she had broken his heart, and I didn't think there was a way to come back from that. She cried day in and day out. After a while, she started crying less. She was questioning me about how Alex and I made such a good couple, and exactly what he thought when he came to know about my past. I told her that he did not know that yet, as I wanted to break the news on my own when I felt it was the right time. She further told me that she never wanted what happened to her to happen to me, and that I should be telling him soon. I told her it was my relationship, and I would handle it my way. After third-wheeling us for months in our relationship, Lily moved back into her own apartment. She still visited a couple of times a week. She just seemed happier every time I saw her, and having some space was really good for her, which made me feel relieved. One night at dinner, Alex said to me, "I'm glad to see Lily doing better," then followed up by asking about James. I told him that James was managing, but I realized I had not talked to him in a while, so I said I would call him up the next day to see him. At the end of dinner, the waiter came up and brought me a dessert. I had not ordered a dessert. When I began to say that I hadn't ordered a dessert, I lowered my gaze into a chocolate sauce, and there written was, "Will you marry me?" And when I turned back to Alex, he was already on one knee looking at me with those charming eyes and a smile on his face. I could almost faint. I felt the butterflies in my stomach and shook my head. Yes, he put the ring on my finger and kissed me. I hugged him with tears in my eyes. The very next day, I called up my brother James and decided to catch up with him at his place. We spoke about what was going on in our lives, and he was really excited to hear that Alex was my fiancé now. He told me how very lucky I was to have found someone who was so genuine and loving, unlike his ex. I chuckled and agreed. I told him he'd dodged a bullet, and if it hadn't been for me, he would now be stuck with a lying witch. He replied that his big sister always took care of him, and he really appreciated that. He said I was a genius because I actually taped her while I was in the restaurant with her, and he probably would have been blinded by love if he hadn't heard it from the horse's mouth. We had dinner and talked more about our lives, and I was glad that he was fine. Months followed in our wedding arrangements with Alex. I almost felt bad asking Lily if she would like to help, since her wedding was just canceled. But I had to. She screamed yes excitedly when I asked her. Well, I was happy that she was still down. We started to look for the venue and the decorations, even a cake for the wedding. It is much more fun when it is your own wedding. I often daydreamed about getting married to Alex, and it was coming faster than I expected. Lily and I went out for lunch one Saturday to the same restaurant we had gone to before. She said the food was so good she had to get it again. When I arrived, she got me a gift. It was a cartoon drawing of me and Alex. It was one of those drawings that you get from the fair when you sit down, and the artist draws you and your significant other with crazy proportions like big heads and little bodies. The drawing of me had a huge mouth. I had to laugh. I asked her where she got this from since the fair hadn't been here for months, and she said she knew a guy who sells them. They look so accurate, right? She laughed. I told her, most definitely. She said we had to frame it and hang it right on top of the bed once we got married, and I said this would go somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where yet. We both ordered the same meal we got last time, which was the grilled steak with garlic butter and the seafood paella. It was just as delicious as it was last time. Lily asked if I was nervous about the wedding, and I told her a bit because I hadn't told Alex about my past and hoped that it wouldn't make that big of a difference. She said it shouldn't if he really loved me for me. I agreed with her, and we enjoyed the rest of our food and left. The wedding day arrived, and it was time for me to walk down the aisle. The soft music was playing, and I made Lily my maid of honor just as she had done for me. I was greeted with the smiling faces of our family and friends. I felt nervous, but I was happy. As the officiant was about to let us tell our vows, he asked if anyone objected. A voice from behind me said, "Me," and I thought it was a joke at first, so I laughed. Then I turned around to see it was Lily. She had a stern face, and she said, "I'm serious." The crowd gasped, and I asked her what she was doing. She said that she knew I was the one who broke up her and James's wedding. I stood in shock. She said she overheard me and James's conversation at his house months ago, confessing that I recorded our conversation in the restaurant. I asked her what she was talking about, still denying the accusations. I felt my face turning red, and sweat was forming under my arms. She said she bugged James's house after the wedding. I wanted to see if there was another girl I had to worry about, but the only girl I had to worry about was you, my best friend, she screamed. She looked over at Alex, and he looked at me in disgust. She said that not only had she told Alex about my past, but Lily also said she'd been intimate with him for the past year. She said that this was their plan all along and that they would be together now. She ran over to grab Alex, kissed him in front of everyone, and said, "If anyone is getting married today, it's going to be me." The crowd gasped again, and there was a lot of commotion. I ran out crying. I just wanted to be alone at that point. James ran after me to console me in the dressing room. He hugged me as I cried into his arms. "How could she?" I said to him. He kept saying that it was going to be okay. Commentary time. Wow, this story is a wild ride from start to finish. Opie found herself caught between loyalty to her best friend and her brother, and the betrayal Lily brought into their lives is truly shocking. It's hard to imagine being in Opie's shoes, having to balance protecting her brother James from a life built on lies, while also being blackmailed by her so-called best friend. The fact that Lily threatened to reveal Opie's past as an adult entertainer shows just how manipulative she truly was. What really stands out here is how Opie navigated the situation. Despite being stuck in such a difficult position, she found a clever way to gather proof of Lily's betrayal without directly exposing herself to her brother. It's a clear example of how strong Opie is, choosing to protect her brother, even at the risk of being blackmailed. And in the end, Opie made the right call by telling James, saving him from a marriage that would have been a disaster. However, the twists in this story just keep coming, especially with Lily's explosive confrontation at Opie's wedding, the audacity of Lily to object during the ceremony, and then drop a bombshell about her own relationship with Alex is beyond words. It's heartbreaking to see how far Lily was willing to go to hurt Opie, even turning Alex against her. At this point, Opie's resilience shines through once again. Even though her wedding day was ruined, she's surrounded by people who care about her, like her brother James, who rushes to console her. This story is a reminder that sometimes the people closest to us can betray us in the worst ways, but having the strength to move on and rebuild is key. And before we wrap up, if you found this story as jaw-dropping as I did, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button for more intense stories like this. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.